Welcome to my 253rd video on my work with OO gauge. I haven't been doing a lot of work on model railway stuff in the past couple of weeks, but I have attended model train shows on each of the past 3 Sundays, the Niagara show in St. Catharines, and then Woodstock, and then Ancaster. And in this video I'll just be reviewing my visits and the items that I brought back from these 3 shows. And here is everything that I brought back over the 3 shows. There were certainly a lot more interesting items on offer at the various shows, but I don't really have space available for further layout building, well, at least not without some substantial domestic reorganization. So I'm not really buying layout building stuff, and I've already acquired most commonly available OO gauge items that suit my particular interest in modelling pre-war LMS operations. So I'm mostly just looking to acquire noteworthy and unusual items, although I will pick up some more commonplace items of rolling stock, etc. sometimes if they pique my interest and the price is reasonable. Actually, this was the one and only item that I picked up at the Niagara show in St. Catharines. There was one vendor with quite a lot of British stuff, including a number of LMS items, but they were all things of which I already had examples, and the prices were a bit on the steep side, so no obvious bargains. There was one item on offer from another vendor that I would call something of a bargain, the latest Hornby version of the Princess Royal class from 2021, new in box, offered for $175 Canadian. But I didn't buy that, as I already bought that model when it came out in 2021 and paid considerably more than $175, especially when taking into account shipping from the UK. So anyway, the only item that I bought was this 00 mineral wagon with a die-cast body, and I nearly didn't bother with this, as someone had glued a piece of styrofoam inside it. So I'm going to have to fix it up, fit a load or something before running the wagon. The Niagara show was a bit smaller and not massively well attended. The range of vendors was a bit different, as this location is in a slightly different area a bit further from where I live. The following Sunday I went to the show in Woodstock, Ontario. This was a bigger show and well attended, especially given that they just had a Woodstock show last month and some people were expressing doubt about having another just a month afterwards. I did bring home a few more items from this show, as seen here. I brought 2 more of these Trix super detailed coaches to add to the one that I bought at a previous show. I do quite like these. I must admit I didn't realise until I unpacked them at home that the top one had tension lock couplings fitted. Generally, post-war Trix stuff uses simplex couplings. I bought these 2 boxed wagons, nothing really special, but the Burton-on-Trent association of the bass wagon and the cute cloth cover on the china clay wagon appealed to me. I was particularly pleased to pick up this assortment of scrap 00 pieces from one vendor. These were actually in a tray along with other scrap pieces in various scales from various manufacturers. I picked out all of the 00 items, as I often need to do repairs or modifications for things to run on my 00 layout, and it's always handy to have spare wheels, couplings, etc. And this group also included 2 rather broken-down 00 chassis, definitely in rather a mess, but both including their centre rail pickups, potentially very useful for 2-rail to 3-rail conversions. And one of the chassis also still has its armature, though I don't necessarily have much hope for that. Here are a couple of LMS tin plate coaches that came with these scrap pieces, not entirely correct and complete, but definitely offering some potentially useful spare parts. And here are the chassis, mostly useful for the centre rail pickups, but may be able to provide other useful spares. I'm not too sure how I might use this Duchess of Atholl body and this rather strange-looking incomplete tender, but you never know, they might come in useful for something. I was quite dubious about this item, and indeed only bought it after the vendor offered a further discount to $15. It's a Bachmann hand-propelled cart, or Gandhi dancer. It's only got one of the 2 little men that are supposed to come with it, and I don't know whether it will actually work at all. If it does, then the solitary guy will have to take it round one of my 2-rail layouts on his own. but it could potentially be somewhat cute. When I think about carts of this type, I remember more than anything else the episode of Dad's Army that features such a cart, chasing and running away from a train with a locomotive. I also bought yet another 00 metal footbridge fairly cheaply. I expect I'll be able to find a place for this somewhere on my 00 3-rail tabletop. And a few more odds and ends, a small spirit level, some logs for wagon loads, and a bunch of metal figures. These metal figures are a little different to those I'm most familiar with. Apart from anything else, instead of having bases, the standing figures mostly have pegs on their feet, so hopefully it should be possible to fix them in place with holes in the board. I'll see what I can do with these, probably on the 00 tabletop. These are the items that I brought back from the most recent show at the Ancaster Fairgrounds near Hamilton, Ontario, and that show was very well attended. In fact, probably the best attended I've ever seen a model railway show. People were still queuing to get in an hour and a half after the doors opened. A couple more boxed rolling stock items. Nothing very special, but potentially useful. An Airfix LMS composite coach, an LMS vent van in LMS grey, as used for wagons by the LMS up until 1937, and a Trix brake van, similar to the Midland 20-ton type. I picked up 4 more 00 wagons for just $5 each, 3 more die-cast mineral wagons, and a tin plate 20-ton brake van. Another little acquisition, just a bunch of various magnets, including a stack of rectangular rare earth strong magnets. Not sure what I might end up doing with these, but magnets can come in very useful sometimes. Handling these called for a bit of care, as they could really mess up any magnetic storage, so you don't want to let them near your phone or your computer or whatever. I bought this Hornby card kit for a goods shed, not really because I have any need for another goods shed, but I was just interested to see how this might go together, as I wasn't aware that purely card building kits had ever been sold under the Hornby brand. It will be interesting to see how easy this is to build and how good the assembled building looks. I've put together various Hornby buildings with plastic parts and printed stickers for the exterior, but this will be my first time with a Hornby kit with only card parts. I wonder how it'll compare to Metcalfe and Superquick card kits. Finally, I bought this Bachmann resin building. I'm not really sure I can find anywhere on my layouts to put this, but it seemed to be a nice-looking building and something of a bargain, $25. So that's it for the stuff from these last 3 shows. There is one more event this year on the last weekend of November, a model railway flea market in the Polish Cultural Centre on Corthra Road in Mississauga. I'm not entirely decided as to whether I'll go to that or not. I did attend this event last year, but I had some other business in Mississauga that time. I may or may not make the trip this time just to check out the flea market. I probably will if the weather's decent.